The secrecy on Long Island has finally come to an end. We have some announcements on some New York Islanders signings today. Plus, we also have the St. Louis Blues signing one of their 2020 draft picks. We'll discuss these signings coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, Lou Lamoriello has finally removed the curtain of secrecy here and unveiled some of the signings that many of us have suspected were obviously, confirmed already, just not officially announced and registered and, officially on the books here for salary cap purposes. But we have a flurry here of Islanders signings finally officially announced on today, September the 1st. Now, before we jump into those, I do want to quickly just acknowledge another quick signing that happened here today, and then we'll spend the rest of the time in this video talking about the Islanders signings as well as their overall salary cap situation. Now, the St. Louis Blues also had announced that they've signed Tanner Dickinson. Dickinson is a 2020 fourth-round pick. He's an American-born center iceman, 5'11", 150 pounds. Played last year a very limited amount because of all the COVID restrictions. He only played a handful of games in the American Hockey League for the Utica Comets. But prior to that, he had played in the Ontario Hockey League for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Had a decent year, 40 points in 64 games, and I would suspect that he likely goes back and continues to play in the OHL this season and looks to have, a more impressive, season with hopefully some good, strong development there for St. Louis. But obviously for him, and just playing hockey is going to be the main thing regardless of where they end up assigning him. But I would suspect his junior club will be where he goes back to. Now, as I mentioned, the secrecy is finally over when it comes to the Islanders. We did not hear anything on Zach Parise, however, so I'm suspecting the way the Islanders have decided to make these announcements and conduct this business is they announced all these as re-signings because they're all four players that were already technically part of the organization here. So I would suspect we'll find out on Parise a little bit later. So first up, let's go through these signings, then we're going to look at their cap situation and kind of discuss how they need to go about things here. Because technically, and I say technically, they are over the cap, but they have options to deal with that without really doing anything significant here. So, of course, first up, we get Anthony Beauvillier, the restricted free agent forward. He signs a 3-year contract with an average annual value of $4.15 million. That does buy up the rest of his RFA years as well as one UFA season. So he will be an unrestricted free agent here at the end of the contract. Beauvillier apparently was looking for a slightly longer term. I think Friedman had mentioned a 4-year deal would have been preferred by their camp at a slightly higher value. At one point, I believe he was looking for $4.5 million. So the Islanders were, I think, willing to go to 4.5, but they want it longer term to do that. So Beauvillier, I think, trying to maximize his earning potential, decided that he would go a little bit less and less term, which kind of makes sense here for both sides anyway. So $4.15 million for Beauvillier is pretty decent. I mean, he's been a pretty solid player for them. Plays in the top 6 or top 9, depending on the night. He can play, up and down your lineup. He's, been a 15 to 20 goal guy, hit 20 goals once, been a good contributor in the playoffs as well. I would like to see him take his game to a next level, be a little bit more consistent at that 20-plus mark, but at the same time, it really depends on where they slot him here in the lineup. So we'll see where things go with Jordan Eberle not with the team anymore. Guys like him and maybe a youngster like Oliver Wahlstrom will have to, step up and produce a few more goals here for them to kind of continue on at the same pace. Now, the Islanders also announced longtime center iceman Casey Cizikas, who's been with the Islanders for a long time, has officially re-signed. This one is one of the deals that we did get some rumblings on from Elliot Friedman quite some time ago, but it's, of course, you never know with Lou. He really couldn't confirm 100% what he had was, fully accurate, but he actually turned out to be bang on. It was a 6-year deal with a $2.5 million average annual value. Cizikas has played just shy of 600 games now with the Islanders organization, almost 70 playoff games, and has been an absolute warrior for them. A really important part of that fourth line, which Barry Trotz uses to start pretty much every game. Cizikas was offered more money to leave Long Island and chose not to do that. I believe that the Seattle Kraken were offering somewhere around $5 million, but I'm not sure on the term. I would suspect it would be, a fairly lesser term. I can't imagine $5 million over 6 years would have been what they were offering. I mean, Cizikas at this point is 30 years old, so he still has a decent amount of hockey left. This will take him to age 36. And he basically confirmed in an interview conducted earlier today as well that he is an Islander for life and will basically die in Islanders, what he said. So he's one of those guys that's really, tied to this team and has no intentions of ever playing anywhere else. The other signings they announced here today was Kyle Palmieri, who they acquired at the NHL trade deadline. Palmieri gets a 4-year contract with an average annual value at $5 million per season. Of course, he was a decent fit after coming over from New Jersey. Got off to a good start, but then really cooled down. He ended up putting only up 4 points in 17 games when he played the rest of the regular season last year. And I know there were times heading into the playoffs, I honestly wondered if he really was a good fit there and a solid top 6 guy that was really going to work for them. I like his game. He's been a good player. He's scored 30 goals before, been in that 25 to 27, 28 range quite a bit, but it just wasn't working with the Islanders. But you know what? It takes time to gel with a new team. He did get better, I found, as the playoffs went on. Ended up putting up 7 goals and 9 points in the playoffs, and was a pretty important piece of their playoff run. So as much as I had concerns early on, I don't mind this contract. And if he can continue to put up 25 goals for at least a few more years, then this deal will certainly work out for them. They also signed young goaltender Ilya Sorokin. Sorokin gets a 3-year contract valued at $4 million per season. Of course, Sorokin is a little bit older because he was drafted way back in 2014. Waited a long time to come to the NHL. He is now 26 years old as of last month, and this $4 million contract to me is going to be well earned, I think. He only played in 22 games in his rookie season, but put up a really impressive 217 goals against and a .918 save percentage. Appeared in 7 playoff games. The team and Coach Barry Trotz seemed like they felt confident going to him in the playoffs, which was important as well. So we got some really good experience last year, and I think he can only continue to build off that. They've only got Varlamov under contract here for a short time, and then after that, I would suspect that Sorokin is expected to become the full-time starter, would be my guess here. I mean, the New York Islanders, with all these signings here today, technically, like I said, do end up over the salary cap. But I'll show you here the capfriendly.com graphic from their Islanders page showing them at $3.7 million over the cap, which they technically are. However, keep in mind, they do have Johnny Boychuk on the books, and he is not playing anymore. He's basically retired due to injury. So that's $6 million for this season only. This will be the last year for that contract that they can place on long-term injury reserve to get themselves out of cap trouble here, which will basically free up an additional like 2.2 to 2.3 range in actual salary that they can continue to add a little bit more to this roster. But, they'll be okay this year, but I know their plans were to add another goal scorer if they could, or replace Nick Leddy with, hopefully a viable option that could come in a little bit cheaper. And that is going to be very tricky to do. They're not going to be able to do that with the cap space given. They would only be able to do that via trade. There's really nothing out there in the free agent market either that's really going to go and satisfy those needs at this point in the offseason. So they'd have to do it via trade and trade out a piece that would be, a decent contract. Now, of course, the other concern I immediately came to mind for me was next year and beyond, because they do have a lot of players now signed longer term. They've got Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, now they got Palmieri, they got Pajot, they still have Bailey for a few years. Now Cizikas' deal is long. They just signed Pelech to a long-term deal. Obviously now adding Sorokin for 3 more years. It's going to get tricky, but they do have a few players coming off the books next year, and it is debatable if they return or not. You've got Leo Komarov making $3 million. He's probably not going to be, I would hope that they wouldn't bring him back, to be completely honest. No offense to Uncle Leo, but I think he needs to move on when able to. I think the Islanders were reportedly trying to find a way to do that this offseason, but have not figured that out. He'll be 35 in January, and it's just not going to be reasonable for them to be able to keep him around. So we'll see what they decide to do. He only scored 1 goal in all of last year, including regular season and playoffs, and that's just tough to have on the books for $3 million. If push came to shove and they really want to create some extra space, they could put Komarov through waivers and demote him to the minors, assuming he clears. They would only get just over $1 million in cap relief, though. but it is a method they could do to free up some space. They also, on the cap-friendly page, coming up to this conclusion on their cap number as well, also have 14 forwards listed. So with the 14 forwards listed, they could also demote somebody else or put somebody through waivers or make a trade. A guy like Richard Panik would be one of the first that comes to mind, but we'll see. As far as Cal Clutterbuck's future, it's debatable what his future holds. He's making $3.5 million. He'll be 34 years old, going on 35 when his next contract would kick in. If he wants to continue to play, he would have to do something similar to what we saw like Matt Martin and Casey Cizikas do and take a shorter term at less money. Now, I can't see them giving a term like they did for Cizikas because he's a fair bit older. I mean, he's over 3 years older than Casey is, and we got Matt Martin, who's 32, but he's got 3 years at 1.5. It's not all that bad. So realistically, this team is going to have to make some changes moving forward. They're going to have a hard time, like I said, finding that replacement for Nick Leddy or bringing in an extra goal scorer that they were rumored to be looking at all offseason. So the only way to do that, they're going to probably have to find like a hockey trade type of deal where they can move out something significant. Like, for example, if they want to move out a forward making like $5 million for a defenseman that maybe is making $4 or $5 million, that would be something they could look at doing. Ultimately, like I said, the one guy that has been rumored maybe being a trade option would be Josh Bailey. So we'll see if that's something they consider or not here. But ultimately, we finally get the Islanders news that we've been waiting for all offseason. Like I said, the Zach Parise signing didn't happen today, but given the remaining amount of money through LTIR that they can access, I would suspect they'd probably get a one-year deal at $1 million or less, still giving them a little over $1 million wiggle room to make any other sort of moves or take on something additional. But like I said, I don't think they really need to do that. I think anything else they do will be done via trade if they can find the right deal and Lou can pull the trigger on something that makes his team better. That is all your news here for now. We'll likely be back later with another video, so stay tuned for that. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.